Imagine it's been raining for 6 straight days. Not a shower, not a passing storm. A cold, relentless, gray downpour that never lets up. The ground outside your shelter has turned to mud soup. The river nearby has crept 20 feet closer than it was last week. And the herd you were tracking? Gone. Scattered. Untraceable. Because rain doesn't just fall. It erases everything you need to survive. You can't hunt. You can't see fresh tracks. The mud swallows them whole. You can't even walk far without risking a twisted ankle on slick rock. And out here, a twisted ankle isn't an inconvenience. It's a death sentence. For most of human history, a week of rain wasn't a mood. It was a full-blown crisis. And the way ancient humans handled that crisis might explain more about who we became than almost anything else they did. Right now, when it rains for a week straight, you complain about your commute. You binge a show. You order food to your door. Rain is background noise to you, something that makes you sleepy. But 50,000 years ago, that same rain could kill you 3 different ways before the week was even over. The first is cold. A wet human loses body heat up to 25 times faster than a dry one. Without waterproof shelter, without heavy clothing, a week of soaking rain and temperatures even in the 40s Fahrenheit could push a body into hypothermia slowly, quietly, at night, while everyone's asleep. The second is flooding. Most ancient shelters, caves, rock overhangs, sat near rivers or at the base of hills, because that's where water and game were. But that same location turned deadly during a prolonged storm. Archaeologists have found thick flood sediment layers inside occupied caves, meaning water rushed in while people were still living there. Some of those caves were never used again. And the third is predators. Rain doesn't just push humans into shelter. It pushes everything into shelter. There are cave sites in South Africa where human remains and large cat remains were found in the exact same layer. Some human skulls there carry puncture marks that match leopard teeth precisely. So a week of rain didn't just make life uncomfortable. It compressed the entire ecosystem into the same small, dry spaces, predator, prey, and human, all trapped together. And in the middle of that, one job outranked everything else, keeping the fire alive. Before roughly 40,000 years ago, humans could control fire long before they could reliably create it from nothing. So if a fire died during a week-long storm, that group might not get another one. Not without traveling to find an ember elsewhere. Some groups carried smoldering coals wrapped in green leaves, or packed inside a fungus that could hold a spark for hours, essentially a biological lighter. We know this wasn't rare caution. When Otzi the Iceman, the 5,300-year-old body found frozen in the Alps, was examined, he was carrying a full fire-starting kit in his belt pouch. Even thousands of years later, losing your fire was serious enough to justify carrying backup equipment at all times. So during a week of rain, someone's entire job was the fire. Move it deeper into the shelter. Shield it from wind and drips. Split open wet logs to reach the dry wood hidden inside. Use birch bark because birch contains a compound that burns even when wet. One person might sit beside that flame for hours a day, all week, because that fire wasn't comfort. It was survival, light, cooked food, and protection from everything circling outside. So the fire's holding. You're dryish. But you're trapped for days with nothing to hunt and nowhere to go. What do you actually do with that time? You make things. The archaeological record is packed with evidence of manufacturing happening deep inside shelters, exactly where someone would sit near firelight for hours. At Blombo's cave in South Africa, archaeologists found a 100,000-year-old ochre workshop, shells used as mixing bowls, pigment ground into powder, bone tools used to apply it. That's not panic. That's a process. Bone needles start appearing around 61,000 years ago. Delicate tools with tiny drilled eyes. You don't make one of those while running from a threat. You make it sitting still, focused with hours to burn. And here's where it gets stranger. At a Neanderthal site in France, archaeologists found a fragment of twisted plant fiber string, the oldest cordage ever discovered. In Germany, a 35,000-year-old ivory tool was found with spiral grooves designed specifically for twisting fiber into rope. Making rope is slow, repetitive, almost meditative. It is, in other words, the perfect bad weather task. And rope changed everything. Better shelters, snares, tool handles. An enormous share of ancient technology depends on it, and it was almost certainly born from someone stuck inside, waiting out a week of rain. People weren't just making tools. They were making their shelters livable. At Sibudu Cave in South Africa, archaeologists uncovered actual bedding, layers of grasses and rushes arranged as sleeping mats, dating back 77,000 years. The top layer included a plant that naturally repels insects, and the bedding was periodically burned and replaced to stay clean. 77,000 years ago, someone was doing pest control. But then the story shifts into something nobody expects. Because after the tools, after the rope, after the bedding, came art. The paintings inside Chauvet Cave in France are roughly 36,000 years old. Lions, horses, rhinos, drawn with an understanding of anatomy and motion that still stuns researchers today. Animals captured mid-stride, muscles tensed. These weren't idle scratches. They were made by people who'd studied these animals for thousands of hours and then recreated them from memory, underground by firelight. And here's the detail that matters most. These paintings aren't near the entrance, where you'd naturally shelter. They're deep, sometimes hundreds of meters in, through narrow crawl spaces. Someone carried a fat-fueled lamp into total darkness and painted. Nobody does that on a good day. You do that when the rain has been falling for a week straight. Every tool is already sharpened, and there's nothing left to do but go deeper and create something. And that leads to something even bigger. A week of rain didn't just produce art. It may have produced culture itself. Picture 15 to 30 people crammed into a shelter for days with nothing to do. You talk. In 2014, an anthropologist studying the Jew/Hoansi people of the Kalahari found that daytime conversations were mostly practical. Resources, disputes, logistics. But at night, around the fire, over 80% of conversation shifted to stories, songs, and shared history. The firelight changed what people talked about. And that talk wasn't idle. It carried survival knowledge, where water holds through dry season, which plants are safe, where to find flint. And beyond that, it carried myth, explanations for the rain itself, passed down by people who were living the exact situation the story explained. Some Aboriginal Australian oral traditions have been verified against real sea level changes from roughly 7,000 years ago, meaning stories survived that long through nothing but repetition, night after stormy night. A week trapped inside wasn't dead time. It was transmission time, the days when knowledge moved from old to young. And rain wasn't only a threat. After it finally stopped, the payoff arrived. Soft ground meant perfect tracking, deep clear prints showing exactly where every animal had gone. Rock depressions filled with clean drinking water. Mushrooms and tubers surged after rain. Termites swarmed by the thousands in tropical regions. Dense protein, no tools required, just pick them up. So when a week of rain finally broke, ancient humans didn't stumble out lost. They stepped into soft ground covered in fresh tracks, carrying new rope, new tools, new pigment, new stories completely ready. Every piece of clothing, every painted animal on a cave wall, every myth explaining the sky, all of it came from downtime. Boredom, the way you experience it, didn't really exist for them. Because when your survival depends on what your hands make in the next few hours, you don't get bored. You get creative. And that might be the single biggest reason we're still here.